Small Business Saturday.
Welcome to Small Business Saturdays video series with your host and my husband.
And my dad, Aaron Montgomery.
Join the conversation.
Let's talk some business.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everybody's feeling pretty good. I got a little late start here. Jim, good morning. How are you? Hopefully everything's well in your neck of the woods there. Anyhow, like I said, got a little late start. I got in at about 2 a.m. last night on my flight back from Las Vegas, Nevada. So overslept a hair, but and then the computer apparently overslept a little bit too. But anyways, well, so let's dive in. Let's do this quickly and hopefully still get you out of here by 11 a.m. Central Time. And hey, Cheryl, you're on a flight home. You're catching me on an airplane. That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, Jim, wish you could have made it too, but we'll review some things real quickly here and hopefully get you all the information that you need. So feel free to ask questions about anything that comes up about that you want to know about. But all right, well, let me give you my quick rundown of the event from my perspective, from what I did and saw, and then we'll talk about a couple of the key points that stood out to me. And hopefully, like I said, if you guys have some questions, please feel free to ask. All right, so interesting stuff out there for sure. I went out on Wednesday and excuse me, the show started on Thursday morning. So, but they had some great education sessions going on Wednesday too. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the Essential Small Business Strategies session that they had on Wednesday afternoon. And there were 5 speakers and I was one of them. Really great speakers, great content. The gentleman that opened it up talked about company culture and, how he's changed his business drastically just by focusing on the company culture. It was a huge talk. And the cool part about it, I had an opportunity to kind of debrief with Dan Marks from SGIA afterwards, after the whole thing. And we were talking about that session particularly. And the cool part was he said, hey, there's nothing wild and crazy and rocket science like that he's doing. He really is just showing his employees that he cares. So that was really cool. It was a really cool session. Great stuff through all of those things. Martha, good morning. So anyhow, that was Wednesday afternoon, Small Business Strategies session. I got to be the last to go, so I don't know if that made me the headliner or not, but man, I was just honored to be part of that group of really good speakers. So that happened on Wednesday. What I love about that is that was a small business session, and SGA only charged like between $50 and $65 for the session, and it was so that's 1:30 to 4:35 really good speakers. And I, not being egotistical, but I felt like we had a good time talking about our topic, which was social media, and it was awesome. So, to me, SGA is putting a big emphasis on the education. Dan Marks, who's their director of all of those programs, is doing a fantastic job over there. And so that was the kickoff for me. So from there, I was pumped. I was excited. And day one of the show, day 2 for me on Thursday, I went over to the show and I just walked the show. My friends from Pick the Gift were there with me, and we just walked the show. In fact, I got 25,000 steps on my watch that I'm not wearing right now. But so there was some walking, meaning the show floor was huge. It was massive. I believe there was 550 exhibitors, and some of the exhibitors were exhibiting in spaces that resembled more like large buildings than trade show spaces, and you had a lot of big names there, from HP to Epson to Ricoh, Oki Data, a lot of those big companies, very well represented. M&R had a huge booth space with all sorts of stuff going on. Stalls had a huge booth space with all of their kind of partners around there, from Transfer Express to Great Dane Graphics and things like that. So Thursday just kind of took it all in. It was awesome. It was really amazing. And the thing that I guess slightly disappointed me is I didn't see anything that really stood out as like a game changer for our industry. There's definitely some cool new stuff and a few little things, and I'll talk about those in just a second. But as far as like this game changing piece of technology, it just wasn't there this year. In years past, they've had some things that looked really cool, and could potentially make some changes. But I didn't. I don't know. Maybe I missed it in all of the walking around that I did. But nothing really stopped me in my tracks and said, "Wow, let's see how that changes things." So, not anything major to worry about or think about. I mean, as far as the show itself, it was packed, lots of people there. The exhibitors were pumped. So from a vibrancy of our industry, I think we're in a huge, in a great spot for sure. So that was Thursday. Got an opportunity to do that and hang out and just, like I said, just walk around. And it's been years since I've been able to do that. I used to be the one in the booth for years and years and years. So to be able to just kind of take it all in from the other side was great. So that was Thursday. Friday was a whirlwind, but also awesome in its own right. So Friday morning, actually from the hotel room there, we did the Two Regular Guys podcast. I was in my hotel room. Terry was in his hotel room. And then our guest actually came to us from Brazil. So Blumenau, Brazil. And so we really challenged ourselves to see if we could have major difficulties, but awesome that things worked out really well. So that was good. I ran over and I had a digital marketing session. We talked about email and social media, and that was great. It was an hour-long session, and normally those sessions in my brain, how I present, go about 90 minutes. So trying to condense that down to 60 minutes was a challenge. And then in the middle of it, there was a fire alarm that went off for about 10 or 15 minutes. So I was slightly over my time limit, and the gentleman presenting after me was a little perturbed with me, and I apologized profusely. With that alarm, it set me off my rails, but I wanted to get through everything. But here's what stood out to me with that. The room was full. People were engaged. I actually had to kind of grab all my stuff and run outside so I could just have some great follow-up conversations with people. So, and here's the other thing that stood out to me. When I asked people, how many people in the room here, this is your first SGIA show, I would have about 80% of the room raised their hand. So again, vibrant community, people getting out there, people getting after it. And understanding that education is key. There's all sorts of stuff out there, but getting yourself educated, spending time working on your business, not in your business, very, very, very important. And I'm just super stoked to be a small part of that. And honestly, like I've said many times on this program, I learned just as much from you guys as you guys learned from me. So I appreciate everybody tuning in, becoming a part of this community and enjoying all that. So session was done. From there, I went to the Garment Decorators Luncheon where they talked about ThreadX. You can see that they gave us a cool water bottle and ThreadX flyers and stuff like that. And Ricardo Crispo was the keynote at the Garment Decorators Luncheon. He is a totally dynamic speaker, former CMO of Mattel, has worked on movies like Avatar. So he's just a brand genius, really, branding genius when it comes to these kinds of things, and just a super dynamic speaker. And he's going to be the MC at the ThreadX event here. So if you haven't already signed up for ThreadX, just go to threadxconference.com and get signed up for that. I'm going to be out there. Plus, February in San Diego, California, February 17th through the 19th in San Diego, California. If you've not been to San Diego, California, you need to go because the weather's perfect pretty much year round. And it's just it's one of my favorite cities in the whole country. So I hope to see you guys at ThreadX. That's my little quick commercial, but not because of any other reason than I think the information that you can get from being a part of this networking community and event is going to be huge. Going to it last year, I mean, to me, it was a total game changer for our industry, the way that people bring information and what's talked about. There was no discussions about how does this machine work or how does our product work. This was, here's how you improve your business. It was awesome. It was amazing. So ThreadX, did that. From there, I went to a press conference being presented by Stalls, and they've got some really cool stuff coming. I'll talk about a couple of those things in a little bit. And then back to the show floor, a couple other quick meetings. Had an opportunity to chat with Cheryl Kuchek for a while, and Matt Vassalano, sorry. Brain's still not quite functioning, being home at 2 a.m. here. Matt Vassalano from the Rhinestone World, talked to him for a while. David Gross, Jimmy Lamb. It was a great little connection of a whole bunch of wonderful people, and catching up with Cheryl. She was doing some cool live stuff there. So that was kind of the end of my show floor time. From there, I rushed over to a kind of a gala event that was being put on by Oki Data, Instagraphics, and Graphics One. And at the start of that event, Ford Bowers, the president of SGIA, gave a talk about the change happening with Print United next year, as well as some breaking news that I actually had not heard yet. So let's talk about, so here's the three things that stood out to me, and I'm going to kind of go from the stuff that I learned at the very end all the way back to the stuff from more at the beginning. So number one thing that stood out to me after that conversation with Ford, he was discussing why they're getting, again, I'm in this camp of people that are very concerned about where SGA is heading with this Print United and the packaging and more commercial printing and things like that. From a garment world, obviously we're garment printers and we want to be represented in all of this. And so definitely very concerned. He did a pretty good job putting a lot of those current concerns to rest. What his vision is bringing a bigger community together, because in today's world, we can't just be the X or so people in communities that are printing everything, printing packaging, printing garments, printing signage, printing promotional products, where do they go to gather all their information at once? And that's what he's trying to do. Now, are they going to forget some people along the way? Definitely have concerns about that, but I don't think that that's their intention. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Ford's working really hard. He said that he's so far out on the limb with this stuff that he can't even see the tree trunk anymore. So he said, I may be the shortest tenured CEO in SGIA history, but you know what? I think this is the right thing to do, and we're doing it. So, but the real big news that he follow that up with is there's a show that had been going on for years called Graphics of the Americas, and it has slowly been dying over the years, and SGA just bought that show. So what that means is they are making a connection into the Latin American world, and they want to be more actively involved there. Now, I don't know what that does for all of us necessarily, but the Latin market is definitely a growing market. So, what can we learn from that? What can we understand? So anyhow, that was the big news there, Graphics of the Americas. I'll back up to the event I was in before that. Stalls had their press conference. So they've got some interesting things going on. They've got a bunch of new product that looked really cool, worth checking out. And then they also talked about a new decorators network that they're putting together. So we're going to, in January, have Zach Ellsworth from Stalls on Two Regular Guys podcast to talk a little bit more about that. So they're certifying heat print people. That way they can send people to you to do business. So I think this is something interesting, something worthwhile. They talked about, just contract decorators. They talked about people doing fulfillment. And then they also are seeing this need for live printing events. So I don't know if any of you guys that are watching right now have ever done any live printing events, but they are partnering with Tim Williams of the YR store to kind of make that a bigger part of their business too. You know, Stalls does a live printing event, pretty big one. They make all of the jerseys for the people at the NFL draft. So that's a live printing event if I ever heard of one. But then, you know, kind of pop-up events, going out to a community event or something like that, and printing right on there and personalizing right on site there. So that was interesting. That stood out to me. And then the third thing that I saw was, I don't know if this is necessarily news or anything big. I saw a number of small format sublimation systems out there that were being sold that were not sawgrass. So the reason why that was interesting to me is there didn't seem to be a lot of hand wringing from the folks at Sawgrass. There was no lawyers running around doing cease and desist. So I don't know if this makes it kind of official that their patents they're no longer chasing people down on their patents. But there were definitely several. Graphics One had one in their booth. A number of the there was and I'll have to look it up and I'll get more information out on the site. But there was another one that said the new Sublimation Inc. It was a European company. There was a number of Chinese companies that were showing small format sublimation printing. So I think we're going to see a bit of a change. I think inks are going to get cheaper. I think, so it's important that us in the industry make sure we don't devalue our sublimation industry. We need to make sure that we maintain a value product, not a commodities product, because once it gets to a commodities product, it makes it very hard to make a profit. So anyhow, those are my three things, my kind of quick review. Any questions you guys had? Anything that you want to know about? I think the education was fantastic. Obviously, lots of people there. Really great event. So, and I was super proud to be a part of it. All right, everybody. Well, I'm gonna get moving here, and again, sorry for being a little bit late, but thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will look forward to talking to you guys next week. I've got some good stuff coming up, so I will get that posted and up there so you guys can jump in. We'll be back to 10:30 Central Time next Saturday for sure. Okay, awesome, guys. Everybody have a great day. Oh, one last thing I wanted to put out there for you. Email newsletter, aaronmontgomery.info/getconnected. Jim, you're very welcome, sir. Thank you for joining me. And anyhow, aaronmontgomery.info/getconnected. Get signed up for my newsletter, and trying to share good information there too. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have an awesome rest of your weekend.